10 things to prepare a brand new intern for working in the architecture world. Thoughts from the desk of Sarah Pulsipher, an intern of great experience in being brand new. 1. Come prepared. It's a really good idea to have some base knowledge of your work before you start. Make sure you do some research on any projects and programs you'll be using and become familiar with the office standards of your workplace. Early days of work are a lot smoother if you have a general idea of what the boss expects and how to get things done. There will be things about programs and workspace that will surprise you, of course, but you'll do better if you have some idea of what to expect. If you get to work every day with everything you'll need for that day, it makes everything much easier. 2. Be ready to learn. The very first thing you are going to notice is you don't know how to do things, whether that's in design, or in research, or in office standard expectations. In a good work setting, you will always be figuring out how to work better than you did yesterday. There are going to be a lot of challenges that will help you produce better work in the long run. If you come to work thinking you know enough to skate by on the knowledge you've collected from school, previous work, etc., and aren't willing to try new things, it's not going to end well. 3. Ask questions. Because you don't know as much as Joe Architect sitting at the computer next to you, it's a good idea to reach out when you need help. Revit, AutoCAD, Photoshop, and the like all have different program quirks that are going to trip you up. If you are ready to ask questions when you don't know how to do something, it makes it much easier for you and for those who use your projects in the future. Plus, people who have been working in architecture for a while pick up some pretty sweet tips and tricks, and they just might save you a lot of time and effort in the future. 4. Make mistakes, but fix them too. This one is going to happen with or without your input. Don't be discouraged though. Doing something wrong and having someone point it out to you is actually a good way to learn. When you learn how not to do something, it makes it easier to remember for the future. Sure, it's embarrassing in the moment when your boss figures out you used model lines instead of modeling, but it also means you'll double check what you're doing in the next time. 5. Grit your teeth and dig in. There's going to be work you love. There's going to be work you hate. Some of it will be exciting, some will be extremely boring. Because you're an intern, you're probably going to end up doing some cleanup work or beginner's model work or something of the kind that will be a little bit boring. You just have to remember that all of it is work and all of it is useful. If you know how tedious it is to go back to a project someone else modeled without rounding off measurements and tweak every single detail to make it even, then when you model something, you'll know to fix that early on to save another poor intern from the same kind of work. 6. The devil is in the details. Along the same line of thought of having to fix the little things, it's good to know that they do matter. Because we are working with perfect numbers in imperfect settings, sometimes things will take an extra nudge to get it right. Keep in mind, though, that it's the little things that take a good design and make it mentionable. Something as simple as lining everything on a wall to line up to one plane can make a design feel that much more complete. A client with an untrained eye won't know what it is about your design that gives it that oomph, but you'll know. And your boss will know too, which is a big plus. 7. If you don't know, Google. You'll find that there is a lot of research into obscure zone ordinances in your time as an intern in architecture. There are pesky things you have to keep track of, like city codes for required number of parking spaces for a residential home in a residential zone. There are things you won't learn at school that a city or county deems essential for plans to move through all the red tape. It may take a minute to dig through all the legal language for things, but someone has to. 8. Take a look back. If you are struggling with how to do a certain piece of the design, or you don't know what needs to go on the sheet you're laying out, ask for a previous project with similar elements to look and see how it's done. Believe it or not, most of your problems have already been solved by someone else, just not on your project. Looking at the older files is a good way to fix things without tearing your hair out. 9. Use real-world experiences. The nice thing about architecture is you can often find things in your day-to-day life that make your work more interesting. You can't exactly avoid seeing the architecture of a space you're in. Whether it's at a friend's house or a fancy restaurant, there are elements of design in play. When you hate the way a store is laid out, figure out what's bugging you and avoid putting that in your designs. When an apartment in San Francisco feels more open than your 2-story design in a white picket fence area, figure out what the apartment designer did to get that effect. It will surprise you what you find when you look around. 10. Everything is a design. Architects are artists too, and they take presentation to a whole different level. Everything you see has been organized in such a way as to catch your eye, to make you forget about the ugly things, to make it easier to follow. Just like with any other art, people notice when you take the time to make it pretty. That extra step beyond makes any design a higher quality than those without the same attention. It extends beyond design too. Sheet layouts, PowerPoint presentations to clients, even email tags leave a certain impression on people. It's important to make sure you leave the right one.